One AI startup just pulled off something most companies dream about, raising $1.5 billion for a mega round. But here's what makes this shocking. They did it just months after their last mega round. We're talking about Baseten, a company that's betting the entire future of AI comes down to one thing most people have never heard of: inference. And right now, investors are throwing money at them like it's going out of style. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn why a relatively quiet infrastructure startup has become one of the hottest deals in Silicon Valley. This isn't about training giant models. Everyone's already heard about that. This is about what happens after. It's about the moment your phone, your browser, or a company's internal system actually runs that AI model in the real world. That's inference. And Baseten isn't just building another inference company. They're building the layer that might end up running half the internet's AI workloads. The speed of this fundraising tells you everything you need to know about how serious investors think this problem is. When a company can raise billions in consecutive rounds just months apart, it means the market opportunity is even bigger than the last fundraising round revealed. So let's dig into what Baseten actually does, why inference is the next trillion-dollar problem in AI, and what this funding avalanche means for the rest of us. Let's start with the basics. You've probably heard about ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, and all these massive language models. Training those things is one half of the AI story, but training is just the beginning. The real challenge, the thing that's way harder than most people realize, is making those models actually work in the real world. That's called inference. Here's an analogy. Building a Formula One car is hard, but once you've built it, you still need to drive it fast without it breaking down. Inference is the driving part. Every single time you ask ChatGPT a question, every time Gemini generates an image, every time your smartphone's AI assistant listens to your voice, that's inference happening. It's the model running in real time, taking in your input and spitting out an answer. Baseten built a platform that companies use to run AI models super efficiently. Think of it like an air traffic control system for AI workloads. Instead of models crashing or running slow, Baseten's software makes sure they run smoothly and cost-effectively at massive scale. The problem Baseten solves is actually brutal. Running an AI model costs a ton of money. We are talking tens of thousands of dollars per day for a single large model serving millions of users. So companies are desperate for software that makes inference cheaper and faster. Baseten came in with a platform that does exactly that. And now, investors are betting this is a $100 billion market. So why is Baseten raising $1.5 billion just months after their last mega round? The inference market is exploding in a way nobody predicted. When you look at the numbers, it's actually terrifying for anyone who thought AI infrastructure was already built out. Right now, running AI models at scale is eating up an absolutely staggering amount of money and compute power. One estimate suggests that by 2027, inference spending will actually surpass training spending, which sounds impossible if you know how expensive it is to train models. But that's what happens when millions of people use these models daily. The compute costs are genuinely astronomical. One large language model serving millions of users can cost a company between $50 and $500 million per year just for inference hardware. That's not training, that's just keeping it running. And that's why Baseten's technology is worth billions. The company's platform lets other companies run inference workloads way more cheaply. We're talking 50 to 70% cost reductions. That's the kind of savings that turns a loss-making service profitable. Every giant tech company, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, is desperately trying to build their own inference infrastructure. But they are all running into the same wall. It's incredibly expensive and complex. Baseten says, "We'll handle this for you." So now investors see a company that could become the operating system for AI inference across the entire industry. So what does Baseten actually do for customers? Let's talk real use cases. Imagine you're Stripe or a fintech company and you want to add AI fraud detection to your payments platform that learns patterns in real time. You need to run AI models constantly, processing thousands of transactions per second. But building that infrastructure yourself is a nightmare. Data center space, specialized hardware, engineers who understand the stack. It's a distraction from your core business. Baseten lets you outsource that problem. You send them your models, they handle all the infrastructure, optimization, and scaling. Another example, you're a content startup that wants personalized recommendations for millions of users, kind of like Netflix but smaller. You need to run AI inference at massive scale, super cheaply. Baseten's magic is they squeeze way more performance out of the same hardware other companies use. They batch requests together, optimize memory, and route traffic intelligently so that the GPU never sits idle. The result is you can serve more users with less hardware, lower costs, better margins. For a startup, that difference between $50 and $500 million in annual costs can be the difference between profitable and bankrupt. And here's the thing that changes everything. Companies aren't just interested in cost savings. So if inference is such a hot market, why is Baseten getting billions instead of all the other inference companies out there? The answer is that Baseten isn't just another player. They are the company that actually cracked the code. The market includes companies like CoreWeave, Lambda Labs, and others who are building cloud infrastructure for IPO. But Baseten's approach is fundamentally different. They're not just renting GPU time. They're building software that makes inference dramatically more efficient on any hardware, yours, theirs, anyone's. It's the difference between owning a taxi service and inventing the engine that makes every taxi run more efficiently. CoreWeave and others are essentially building the taxi fleet. Baseten is building the engine. From an investor's perspective, that's a way better position. Software scales infinitely and has higher margins. Hardware is capital-intensive and low margin. So when investors see Baseten raising billions in rapid succession, they're not confused, they're impressed. They're looking at a company that found a genuine layer in the infrastructure stack that was worth billions. The big tech companies like Google and Amazon could theoretically build this themselves, but they've decided it's worth paying Baseten to handle it instead. When trillion-dollar companies decide your software is worth using, it tells you something profound about how defensible your position really is. So what does Baseten's massive funding round actually mean for the rest of the AI world? First, it signals that the inference market is even bigger than people thought. When a relatively obscure infrastructure company can raise billions in back-to-back rounds, it means the TAM, total addressable market, is absolutely enormous. We are talking about potentially a $500 billion market opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years. That's bigger than the cloud infrastructure market was at this point in its evolution. Second, it means the era of companies building their own inference infrastructure in-house is ending. Why would you pay millions to hire specialized teams to build something when Baseten can do it better for less? This is consolidation happening in real time. Companies are outsourcing the hard problem to specialists. Third, and this is the kicker, it suggests that the real winners in AI aren't going to be the companies that build the biggest models. It's going to be the companies that build the software that makes everyone else's models run cheaper and faster. The model makers get the headlines. The infrastructure makers get the profit margins. That's been true in computing forever. Intel made more money than the computer manufacturers, for instance. And now Baseten is positioning itself to be the inference equivalent of Intel. This is where it gets complicated, because it means we are entering a phase where AI isn't just about model quality anymore. So how should you actually think about companies like Baseten? Here's the framework I'd suggest. Whenever you see an infrastructure company raising enormous amounts of money, ask yourself 3 questions. Question 1, are they solving a real bottleneck? In Baseten's case, absolutely. Inference costs are genuinely a limiting factor for every company trying to scale AI. Question 2, are they building something others can't easily replicate? That's trickier. Amazon and Google could theoretically build Baseten's technology, but they haven't, and there's a reason. Baseten's been doing this for years and has optimized it in ways that would take competitors years to catch up. Plus, there's a lock-in effect. Once a company has standardized on Baseten for all their inference workloads, switching is painful. Question 3, is there a clear path to profitability? With Baseten, yes. They take a small percentage of the computing costs they optimize away. It's a beautiful model. The cheaper they make inference, the more money customers save, and they capture a percentage of those savings. When all 3 boxes are checked, you've found something genuinely worth billions. The macro lesson here is that in the AI era, the infrastructure layer is where the real defensibility is. But here's what's about to change in ways nobody expects. So let me bring this all together. Baseten raised $1.5 billion just months after a previous mega round because the inference market is real, it's enormous, and it's consolidating fast around winners. The big story here isn't about one startup's fundraising. It's that the invisible layer of infrastructure that runs every AI application is now worth more than most countries' entire GDP. It's a reminder that in any technology revolution, the real money doesn't go to the flashiest players, it goes to whoever builds the layer that everyone else depends on. Model makers get the press. Infrastructure makers get the profit. Looking ahead, watch two things. First, watch whether the other big cloud providers, Microsoft, Apple, even startup founders building on top of Baseten, continue to outsource inference to specialists or try to build it in-house. That'll tell you if the market is really consolidating. Second, watch for acquisition or public offerings. A company worth billions in back-to-back rounds doesn't stay private forever. When Baseten eventually goes IPO or gets acquired, it'll be a signal that the AI infrastructure arms race is reaching a new maturity. For now, the key takeaway is simple. Inference is the next trillion-dollar problem in AI, and the infrastructure companies solving it are getting absurdly wealthy. If you're building AI products, pay attention to who's handling your inference costs. It might just be the most important decision you make.